If you'll rise, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, with that, we'll open the City Council Budget Workshop of today, Tuesday. I think probably any recap of yesterday or corrections is of value. I wanted to make one correction or make it clear what I really believe because I misstated something. When I was talking about the electric transfer, which I'm not trying to revisit, I'm just trying to make clear my position on it. I believe that on any enterprise, any government is entitled to a rate of return to cover the risk involved. In our case, we have 1.4% of St. Lucie nuclear. If something goes wrong, we're at risk. We have all the bonds. We have hurricanes. It goes on and on and on. What I was trying to point out was in the years ahead, certainly the year after this year we're budgeting for, we're looking at, if we're successful, and I can't believe we won't, I'm dedicated that we will be, that our electric rates are going to go down enough that the transfer has to go down $500,000. And that's why I handed out the sheet showing you that in Randy's sheet, really it is, Randy and Cindy's, in successive years, that whatever we do in taxes this year, we're going to use a lot of it to cover, the shortfall we'll have in transfer if we hold the 6%. My inaccuracy was I used the word tax, and that was an error. What I believe is that we're entitled to 6%. I don't believe that we should go over 6% because it flows then into power bills and so on. And so I retract the word tax, but I do think it's important that we keep our eye on the ball and stay at the 6% into the future. So I just wanted to recorrect myself, and all I'm saying is that we came up with a number. I can live with the number. It was a joint number and so on. But what I said, I misstated it. I used the word improperly. So I'm just withdrawing that. That's the only comment I have about yesterday. Anyone else have comments that they'd like to make?
I would just briefly on that. I mean, somewhere along the line, we got to come up with a mechanism for defining what that transfer is, and just straight 6% is probably not a good way of doing that, just because it represents a diseconomy of rate setting. The higher you set the rates, the more you get money into the general fund. This is probably something we need to have a discussion later on, but maybe it needs to be inverted so that the lower the rates, the better the transfer, to make sure that the councils in the future are incentivized to lower the rates and not increase the rates.
Yeah, I think it's a good discussion. I mean, our policy right now, I think we all agree our policy is 6%. And I support the 6% policy, and I think it's justified. The question is, should we revisit the policy of how it's done? And I certainly would have no problem with that.
I was comfortable with the way we did it. I think going higher was a little premature, and I think that where we ended up in the middle was fine.
And just for the record, I would state that I object to the 6% transfer from the electric. I think you're taxing ratepayers outside of the city to pay for city services, and that there is no guarantee that government makes a profit. It's not as if we're in a competitive environment that we can, take this money from our ratepayers.
All right. Ms. Graves will be a few minutes late, but she will be here, and we're to move forward. Cindy, why don't you recap where we are, because what we're stuck with is having a balanced budget under Florida law.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, a couple items, I think, just for business sake here. Randy has invited a guest for tomorrow, and maybe, Randy, you might want to...
Right. Craig Dunlop is our financial advisor, and he's got a person that works with him that has a long background in management of cities. Coral Springs, he was a manager down there, city manager down there. and he's got a lot of accolades for what he did down there in terms of strategic planning, long-range planning, and the performance of his city. And I've asked him to come and just give a power presentation on strategic planning, the way cities undertake it. There's no obligation, there's no cost, there's no anything like that, but it's something that I personally feel the city ought to undertake, looking at each department, looking at where the city's going, looking at the properties it's got, and look in 15, 20 years out and decide what we want to be when we grow up. And I just think that it's a good idea to have him come and talk about it.
And he will be the last item on the agenda after we're finished with our work tomorrow. He's going to come here around 10:30 or so, but I talked to him briefly and encouraged him to sit in on some of the budget discussion so we can see the interaction of council members and get a concept of where we are.
I'm going to talk to him this evening about what's been going on and that sort of thing. One other thing, I think the letter that went out to OUC, I thought was really terrific. I think that was very well done. We got copies of it last night. I thought it was great.
We had several brain trust on that, the development of that letter, and it was amazing we could get it done in about 3 days. So
Yeah, I think that brings one other point. I'm referenced in the letter, and generally speaking, whether it's the mediation sessions, I've sat in some sessions at Florida Power and Light, various places, and I just want to be sure that's agreeable. Nothing would ever be agreed to if anything happens without council's permission, but I am referenced in the letter, so I think it's fair to mention it.
Another item, Cindy has a couple handouts that she would like to distribute right now. It really affects for tomorrow more than anything else, but it gives you something to look at overnight.
At your request, a quick recap of yesterday is fairly simple. We got through the bulk of the general fund. We reduced the electric utility transfer by $60,000. You approved tentatively, including for the city attorney, a new position at the 6-month mark, and also those two things in combination with new estimates from the state on revenue sharing essentially left us flat. Revenues went up, then down, then expenses went up, and we're pretty much where we started yesterday. The two items we have left in the general fund that are substantial impacts to the budget are the police department, the recreation department, and the transfer to the general fund construction, and those are our topics for this morning. I want to suggest when we go through the police department and the recreation department that we also turn our attention to their portion of the general fund construction budget at the same time, since you will have them here, and then save the public works part for last. So that might be a good way to proceed. Yesterday, the question of OPEB funding came up. And I was asked to give a little bit of an overview tomorrow. In preparation for that, what I want to give to you is the information that was provided to the Finance Commission that they used to make their recommendation to you. What you have in the back of this, starting with the memo, is the original Finance Commission package that they reviewed with our actuary, then a letter that was provided by the actuary as a follow-up to that meeting that shows different funding levels for different years, and then my estimated budget impact for different amortization levels based on that funding letter that was provided by the actuary. So just a little bit of information for you before we have that discussion.
Since the presentation to the Finance Commission and now, has the projections gone up? It's yours.
Not really. You know, these were based on last year's actuarial valuation roll forward, so you have that in the package. They were based at that time on an estimate of where health insurance would be for the coming year, and that's changed a little bit, but not as much in the retiree. So it's pretty close to the numbers. Really, the real issue, and we'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow, but this helps clarify it, is fully funding on the ARC and pre-funding in full the trust, or some partial funding. One of the things you'll find attached to the Finance Commission package is a GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, best practice for pre-funding OPEBs. That's a really good overview of the topic. They speak about partial pre-funding of trusts, but make the statement, as we talked about yesterday, that you really need to do that in consultation with your actuary and your auditors, because it can actually impact your liability, and that's what we want to avoid. So certainly it's a topic worth discussing tomorrow, and here's some background information if you have the chance to review it. I know some of you actually saw the Finance Commission meeting. I think some of you were here, but for those who weren't, this is the material they based their recommendation on. So. And with that, I can answer any questions, or we can proceed at your.
Are we ready to move on to the police? Pilar, are you ready? Randy? Okay.
Just give some highlights.
Morning, everybody. The overall police department budget proposal for
50.
for 15-16 budget year is an overall increase proposed of 6.5% overall. We can go over from our operating through our capital if you'd like. Actually, I'm sorry, it's a 6.2 increase overall. The personnel is an increase of a couple of 2 police officers. Actually, a third officer will go to crime scene like we spoke about the other week as well. As you know, we added our the 2 code enforcement officers came over to the police department recently as well. From the operating end, we have some increases. Our professional service increased somewhat, and we are paying someone outside to do our polygraph examinations currently, where Officer Morrison, most of you remember him, he used to do our polygraph examinations. He was certified in that area. The crime lab went up a little bit, and again, that's based on the council that we meet, and the budget went up for everyone on the Treasure Coast at 2.5%. So that's a set figure. That's we utilize, again, the crime lab to all our submissions to be tested, what have you, down there at the college. Vehicle maintenance, and I know I was listening in yesterday, Monty spoke to you about that. That's an increased, that's a set figure that I do not set. And again, some of that, again, is with code enforcement having their vehicles, their upkeep and for those vehicles and for fuel as well.
Once again, there, Chief, how many vehicles have we replaced so far?
Currently, 14,
16 in the current year, I think.
Right,
yeah.
right. There's 12 marked vehicles, and then we have the animal control, we have the crime scene van, and we have the parking enforcement vehicle, which you may have seen already out there. It's a white Jeep Wrangler parking enforcement vehicle. And we also had 2 unmarked Ford Tauruses that went to the detective division.
Okay, and then we have another group of vehicles to be replaced in the coming year. I'm just still concerned that, this vehicle maintenance, maybe we need to get Monty back in here, but I mean, up 76% is a huge number.
Well, I think, as Monty explained yesterday, that wasn't based on the new vehicles. That was
Right.
based on them re-examining the way they were doing the
Once again,
allocation
I
of the
think we may need to
costs.
look at, what they did with this re-examination.
Yeah, it was the only item I had circled that I had any question about. So.
Yeah.
Again, it has net, just to put it in context, though, it should have kind of a net zero impact to the general fund itself, because it came out of another general fund department. So even if you put it back, even if you push it back toward fleet management,
agreed, but
it won't change your bottom
But it's skewing the
line.
police budget, so I was going to say it's funds that could have used somewhere else.
I understand the rationale, but it was a little surprising to me when I saw the number as well.
Yeah.
You know.
See if we can get a little more information on that one.
The
Sorry to interrupt.
schools and meetings, requesting another increase there, slight increase. Looking at our budget this year and who we're sending to school and what we're sending, the different topics. Training, as you know, is so important. We actually have 2 officers this week up in Daytona Shores training to become Colt armors for the firearms, so they can work on those firearms for us. We've had armors in the past, but you have detectives that are promoted. You have to send them to investigatory courses and homicide classes, things like that. We send people all through the year to different classes to keep their certifications upgraded. And to keep us on top of things as they come down the pike, if you will. So training is very important to me, the agency, and I think
we'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
You got to support
I
a
didn't
training.
think that was a hard sell, sir, but
No.
No, you won. You can say no more.
May I sit down?
Yeah.
The gas and oil over the years, we've always actually, and that's going down some, and we've always looked at that number and history, because in the past sometimes it's actually the recommendation's been higher, and we've actually lowered it based on our years past. And as of this year, we're still doing fine there as well. And then really the two increases again on the operating for the most part that we've submitted are the schools and meetings, ammunition, DARE, and K-9. And again, with ammunition, we're almost through. It depends. It takes a while to get ammunition for one, and you can pay up to $400 to $500 a case for 1,000 rounds, depending on if it's the rifle rounds, the .223 round, or our 45 rounds. So. And again, we send people, not only do we do our qualification or discretionary shooting, we do a quarterly structured shooting. We also send people to SWAT school, and they don't supply the rounds. When you send them to SWAT school, we have to supply them as well. So is that an easy sell as well, sir?
That's an easy sell
Okay.
to me.
That's not linked to the idea of fixing up the shooting range, though, is it?
No, sir. This is just in our operating for our ammunition that we need to train and to, of course, have on the road for our duty ammunition as well.
What
And
else?
cost and availability of ammunition.
Yeah, and it varies. It does, but it's not cheap. But that's something obviously that we need. And of course, the DARE, just a couple of thousand there. But I mentioned as well, we also started the 7th and 8th grade, the middle school curriculum at St. Helens, which we hadn't done in the past. I'm not even sure it's being done in the county. And not only are we going to continue with your support again for the 5th grade traditional DARE curriculum, but again to also teach at St. Helens for the middle school curriculum as well.
I think it's a great expansion of the DARE program. And
Thank you. And then K-9, as you know, and I'm going to try to bring all 4 of them in here on the 21st to meet you, all of you, but all 4, when I say that, I mean both handlers and both dogs to say hi. And
You keep them down here.
yes, sir. But a small increase there in regard to our second K-9, and as you again once probably know, we've had one K-9 for the last 6 years, so now we have our 2, and they're out working, and we're certified and doing well thus far. But of course, there's training, there's food, and things like that, vet bills, what have you. So that's not really too much of an increase. Of course, our capital has gone down somewhat. We could talk about that moving forward.
before we leave, the main part of the budget, can I
Yes, ma'am.
backtrack a little bit with
Yes,
a couple
ma'am.
of questions?
Sure.
I know we're adding a couple of officers. Earlier, when you'd come to council, you'd stated that we'd only spend about $14,000 on overtime to cover short and shift.
Right.
I'm struggling with numbers saying, okay, we've spent $14,000 on overtime. How is that justifying 2 new officers?
Sure, and that's as of, I believe that number, in fact, I have it here written on the side, but I think that was as of, that was 423 hours in 2014, and that was $14,230 in 2014. And as I had mentioned before, so that you're right, that's what we spent in 2014, and I think we're on our way to surpass that this year.
You're 106 at 7 months. At 8 months is probably a different number.
That's all the overtime, though, not just the short shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see where I'm going. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that we are growing with tourism, and there's a lot of other demands on the police time, Chief. It just, the numbers, I'm kind of struggling with.
Well, you're right. If you've got the 2 extra police officers, does the overtime amount go down? I mean, you're shifting. Am I not seeing that? Or
And again, this is the reason why, and I'll explain it thoroughly. We try to have 2 officers on the beach, 2 officers from the river to the tracks, basically US 1 and east of the tracks, and then 2 from the tracks west to include the airport. So that's 6 officers and supervisors. And that's a full shift. That's if everyone's in that night. What we're running into, and it's not unlike anywhere else, but you have sick time. You have annual and pre-approved vacation, use it or lose it scenarios. You have FMLA. Again, we have a lot of young officers that are having babies now and becoming fathers. And we have an individual that's on military. He's been away since April and doesn't come back to the end of this month. So he's on an evening shift. That takes one of those guys right away. Those kind of things that we run into daily, and again, that's not unheard of, but we also have a mandatory minimum of 4 officers and 1 supervisor. And that's really cutting it short to police our city. 4 officers with 1 supervisor. You have a fight call. You have somebody with a DUI arrest. You have somebody with another arrest that's in the jail for an hour or 2. And then they have to go out and transport, what have you. So now you're down to 2 or 3 people. I just, I can't have that. I really can't.
I called the other night, and 2 officers, everyone was on call, so I had to wait. I mean, it's just, we're busy.
Yes, we are, and there's obviously reasons for that. And that's in a perfect scenario. We have 2 brand new bicycles that I talked to the Downtown Association about biking and all of you, and we can't wait to do that. In fact, we're getting ready, going back to training. We're getting ready to have training done by Port St. Lucie, so we don't have to send somebody away to lodge. They're going to come up here and do the training for us. We have a boat that needs to be utilized more, and on our beautiful intercoastal.
I think the bottom line to this, don't try to equate overtime to the officers. The officers are to give us more coverage for our city, and so what we're doing is upscaling and upgrading the coverage for the community. If we're trying to offset $14,000 in overtime, you're not going to get half an officer.
Yeah,
So what the chief is telling you, if we want that reliability of coverage in the community and try to stay with that 2-2-2 scenario, which in my opinion I think is reasonable. Also, another statistic that the chief and I have talked about, during the season on any given month you'll have over 100 crashes. That takes an officer to go work a crash that is not available on the street or on the issues that would come, for example, a call from Amelia or anyone else that could have it. So what we're saying in this budget is that we are trying to upgrade the coverage of the community. And I think sometimes it gets misled, and Pilar, you're right, trying to equate the numbers is just not really there.
No, and I love the idea of the bicycle, yeah.
Right,
Throwing a bicycle with downtown or
There's a number of things that we want to do, but in the scenario we're talking about is very reactive. It's not proactive. And proactive to me is utilizing our people on bicycles, getting on the boat. We want an ATV to be on our beaches and our parks more. I, for one, go to the beach quite a bit and sit and relax, and I know we need to be there from time to time, just for presence.
You know, I think, David, you and your people do a wonderful job, and the way I look at it is, as long as I think that you think you need something, I'm here for you. I think Amelia agrees with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one of the things that the reason that we question that is you got 195,000 overtime salaries, and then you're adding 2 people for 229. And I think there's some other things in there, but if you get, just hold on a second. But the idea is that if you can get rid of the overtime and instead of adding 2 police officers, maybe adding 3 or 4, and then getting rid of overtime, I mean, we get more coverage.
Right. And like Mr. O'Connor said, we're not going to get rid of the overtime necessarily. We have pre-approved details all the time with the churches and under the oaks, and people outsiders pay for that. All the 5Ks every weekend. There's a 5K at South Beach or Riverside, literally. So the overtime just isn't for that staffing. We were referring to some monies paid towards short staffing.
So you couldn't just add another person and reduce.
But let's clarify the numbers. The total increase in salaries is 229,
Right.
but that is not all 2 new officers. That is raises across the board at 3%, and that's about 110 of it. That is the addition of the code enforcement officers to his staff away from the planning department, and that's about 35,000 of it. So the new officers themselves are only about $84,000 out of that 229, plus benefits and FICA Medicare. But so keep those numbers in mind. We're not talking the whole 229 is as a result of this additional staffing.
Thank you, Cindy.
Well, that just so then a police officer is roughly a little over 40,000.
40,000.
Okay.
Also,
Right.
Also, one of the things we're doing, in case there's a misconception, the 2 officers that we're talking about are going to be full-time police officers. We do also have a part-time parking enforcement person in here based on the demand that we're getting about parking and those type of issues. So in trying to justify some of the police department, number one, taking the code enforcement, we do have an officer that works with our code enforcement officers now. So that takes man hours that are involved in that process of making sure that happens. We are trying to respond, and as the chief said, doing the education, getting down into the schools, again, that requires man hours that we take people off the road. Another thing that we're doing that I have agreed and support is taking our CSI folks who are civilians right now, making them certified officers. That gives us much more flexibility, and if we need to put them on the road. But one of the overarching things here, and the council set this policy, you wanted more people on patrol. We have done that. We've reduced a lot of the middle management and put people into the cars and out on the road.
Yeah, we want more parking enforcement too, so my phone doesn't ring as much, but anyway.
And that's in here as well with the new
I
parking
understand that.
officers.
Thank you. Yeah, we have, Mr. Stump would like to comment. Is this a good time? Is council happy with that? Or
Sure.
Okay, come forward, Dan.
Appreciate it. We'll be quick. I'm glad the chief was here. Thank you. Dan Stump, city resident. Got a question on the looking at it from a different perspective, from the policy of having broad police coverage, which I'm in favor of. But I keep coming back to this comparison between the city of Sebastian and Vero Beach. I knew as of 6-7 months ago, our total police officers, our personnel, we had more police officers on duty. I don't know if it was 6, 7, 8 more, and I guess this will add to the disparity. Why do you feel you need those 2 extra police officers? Now, I'm not trying to compare overtime versus straight salary, but I can make the simple statement, they're getting the job done up there with a larger town and less police officers. Why does Vero need more police officers?
That's a good question, Mr. Stump, and I'd be glad to answer that.
Yes, sir.
It's real simple, to be honest with you. Yes, Sebastian has a larger population, but Sebastian doesn't have the beaches that we do, Ocean Drive. Sebastian doesn't have the Riverside Park, the Center for the Arts, the downtown district that we have, restaurant shops, the commercial corridor here in US 1 that we have. They have US 1, yes, but not like here in Vero Beach. The courthouse, the county seat, is right here in our Vero Beach city limits.
Okay.
The airport, I know they have an airport, but we have an airport with flight schools. And again, our calls for service has increased over 1,100 between last year and this year at this time. So Chief Morse is a very good friend of mine, and they're doing a good job there, but it's not apples to apples in any way.
Well, just briefly, they do have parks. They have one right on the river. It's a very large park. Mm-hmm. And in regard to the courthouse analogy, we have help from the county sheriff's department every time I go in the courthouse, because I practice law, it's the county sheriff who's there doing security. It's not the Vero Beach City Police.
Right.
And they do have a downtown.
That's what they do.
Okay.
That's the Indian River County Courthouse. So anywhere you go in 67 counties here in Florida, if you go into a county courthouse, the sheriff's department is going to be manning the courthouse, but they are in the city limits, and we respond to calls and assist them in any way. We're responsible for our people here in the city.
Okay. So you think the disparity, I don't know what the difference is, but it's quite a bit. You just think it's justified then?
Yes, sir, without question.
All right. Now, just briefly, if I might, in regard to tomorrow's agenda, the last item I think is this millage, the increases that just proposed. Is there a reason that could not have been brought before the Finance Commission before we put it on the agenda? That never came before. Yeah. And we've had a lot of other items, in my opinion, weren't as serious as this item is. We've gone through that for 2 or 3 hours discussing. This never came before the Finance Commission.
That is correct. It came up in a workshop with the City Council when we were trying to do budget preparations. And as we have had discussions with the chairman of the Finance Commission, my duty is to present a budget to the City Council. Their duty is to modify that according to the policies they wish and to adopt the budget. The Finance Commission is not part of until they can review it and give comments, but the budget process according to the city charter is between the city manager and the City Council, and the council is the responsible party. But this came up at a budget workshop when we were getting ready to prepare the budget.
Okay, and that was in June? Okay, so there really was no time for this to be discussed by the Finance Commission. If you want to pass it in July, is that it?
Well, this is, as is typical, at the council's direction, this budget, once they adopt a tentative budget, would come before the Finance Commission. Keep in mind that the millage that we'll be setting on Wednesday is a not-to-exceed millage that has to be formally adopted at 2 more hearings in September. So our typical sequence, as the city manager described, is the initial stages are between the council and the city manager. It doesn't do any good for the Finance Commission to talk about something that the City Council absolutely is not behind, but it will come to the Finance Commission in between.
Well, I understand and agree that the City Council has got to pass it, at least a tentative one, by tomorrow or whatever, sometime this month. But I think it could have been a little bit quicker on the part to get in front of the Finance Commission at an earlier date. I mean, whenever.
I'm not really sure where the Finance Commission input would have been.
Well, we're in the budget. We help with the budget, and we help with expenditures.
After the City Council has established initial parameters. That's the way that we've done it in years past, because, again, if the Finance Commission is discussing a budget that the City Council hasn't seen, there's no point discussing something that will be off the table in 5 minutes if the Council says absolutely not.
Now, the Finance Commission theoretically, I guess, could propose their own budget, and then we would have 3 budgets. But by the charter, I'm supposed to submit a budget to the City Council. And I asked for a meeting in June, usually right before we start putting the numbers together, to get a concept of what the council is looking for. Because I personally don't want to present a budget that's dead in the water when it gets there. It needs to be something that can be discussed and debated, and then we go.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments. All right, where are we?
Had a couple of other questions.
Go ahead,
for the
Mrs.
Chief.
Stern.
We have another public comment.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. I don't know the protocol.
Don't apologize. Just identify yourself
Okay.
and go
John
forward.
O'Connor, 966 29th Street, Vero Beach. I just want to thank the council for trying to address some of the issues as far as crime is concerned. You know, we've had about a half a dozen break-ins in my neighborhood, and it's very comforting to make sure that we're trying to get guys on the street, and I think that's definitely very imperative. Is there, I guess this question would be in regards to Chief Curry, is there anything that we can do as far as like a task force to eliminate the street crime? Because we always see the correlation between break-ins and insurance rates going up versus I'd rather pay it forward or pay it now and have some more guys on the street to prevent what's going on.
Yes, John. For one, as a community, of course, we always, your community, you're all our eyes and ears as well. So it doesn't work without everyone here. So when you see something, you call. That's what we want. But you also have an opportunity to be part of one of our neighborhood watch groups as well. And if there isn't one in your area, we can certainly start one, and you can contact me to get the ball rolling there. But we have pretty successful neighborhood watch groups thus far, and we're fairly active with that, and we'll continue to be so. So again, it's certainly I know it's said a lot, but it's a community effort, and we need your assistance as well.
Okay, I actually have attended one of those meetings, and I think it's a great start. And as a taxpayer, I'm here to support Vero Beach Police Department, whatever they need to keep us safe, our streets safe. The other thing is, I don't know if it's relevant to this. I have to leave. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Went into the city rec department the other day, and the awning is tattered, and then we've actually rented the stage a couple of times, and the awning for that is kind of tattered as well. So if you got to raise my taxes $25, $50, even $100, whatever you got to do to make sure that we preserve what we have as far as our buildings and our equipment to make sure that we can use those again in the future, I sincerely hope you guys can do that for us.
I hope the rest of the voters agree with you, because I think it's going to happen, and I'm running.
Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Chief and staff. While you're on the police, we've been asking as a neighborhood for a little bit to have some additional patrols, and I'm glad that the Chief has come up with a workable plan. Respond time is important to a lot of us. When we make a phone call, we need the police. There's the non-emergency number and the emergency number. It's important to us that they get there quickly, and we're getting busier as a city. In some of your neighborhoods, most of you know up there, we do have issues that need to be addressed, and a lot of those not so nice issues are on the uptick because we have more people moving into the neighborhoods. The other thing also I want you to keep in the back of your minds with this train issue, in the future, as the trains get longer, the first responders on the scene are usually our police. And if someone calls with an emergency, our officers are very well trained, as you know. It's very thankful to the ones of us that are calling that they can come there and help us. So I'm very glad that you're going to move forward with the 2 additional officers. The chief had explained to me the way they were going to do their coverage, the 2, 2, and 2. That's going to be most helpful going forward in the future. So I hope you continue to support his budget because we certainly need the help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dake. Ms. Turner.
Yes, Chief Beck, on your major goals and challenges, I'm going to say that you're continuing to expand and enhance community partnership, and I just wanted to thank you and all your officers. I think we've seen a definite increase of police participation out in the community. I think it's building a great deal of confidence with our residents and seeing, the officers and being involved, not only, in a civic event, but in charitable events as well. I commend those efforts and glad to see that you're encouraging those to continue.
Thank you.
And I also like to see major goals and challenges that are looking for technological improvements, cost savings, and efficiency. So thank you for your attention to those items.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to move on to?
We do have Monty here if we want to get in back on the vehicle maintenance issue.
That's great. I'll try to deal with that now. Yeah.
I apologize for texting during the meeting, but that was to get Monty down here. So
You weren't driving, sir.
No, that's okay.
Pass those out there.
Monty Falls, Director of Public Works. As we talked about yesterday, the way we build our fleet budget, we look at a 7-year running average of the vehicle maintenance costs for all divisions across the whole city. And the spreadsheet you have there in front of you is broken down with the general fund divisions on top and the enterprise funds divisions on the bottom. And what we did when we were going back and putting the budget together this year, we found an anomaly that we had looked at with the police department's budget. In the past, when the police department would get a new vehicle to replace an old vehicle, those old charges from the 7-year history were pulled out of the history. They weren't pulled out for any of the other divisions. So it was artificially lowering the portion of the overall fleet budget that was prorated to the police department. And to try to make a true cost accounting, when we found that, we put those costs back in so we have a true 7-year history. So you don't, underestimate what that history is. And the way it worked out, the police departments went up some $60,000, but if you'll look at the others, you'll see that they went down to accommodate for that. So what we do have is a true cost accounting. Unfortunately, it shows up this year, and we didn't catch it till this year.
How are those costs being pulled?
They were being apportioned to other departments.
But you said that the 7-year vehicles that were being replaced, those costs were being pulled out of the system. That doesn't just happen. Somebody's got to be pulling it, or
And I can't tell you if it was a policy from the past to try to shift some costs to other cost centers, because you can see the enterprise funds were paying the bulk of that.
Yeah, it would shift it otherwise.
So.
Thank you.
Okay.
That would probably stand in line with a lot of the other policies that we have dealt with over time.
I know that you've been finding things that, manipulation of department costs, and that we're trying to
I
get
hope a few years from now that future city councils aren't continuing to find things, but I'm sure they will. Are we on page 54 now, which is the capital expenditure requests? And I guess we have to go into the other book too, don't we?
These are the operating capital expenditures, and then we'll go into the other book for the.
So page 54. This is a RMS CAD mobile.
Yes, sir. And this is the second year of 4 years we upgraded our system, and I know Councilmember Turner just mentioned about upgrading our technology and trying to be a little more efficient, and we did that in this current year budget, and in moving forward for that total cost of the 146 to Logicis. That's some of our upgrades with our records management system, our computer-aided dispatch, and we're now able to do an integrated report writing from our mobile units, basically sending it from the cars.
It sounds good to
right
me.
to
I
the
think
system.
we're all in the interest of.
Well, a couple of these are just a second year, if you will, of
Well, we already
yeah,
started.
Right.
You've already sold it.
Yes,
Keep
sir.
going. Let's go to page
Next
55.
page. Same thing with the workstations, or can I elaborate?
As far as I'm concerned, workstations are something you need every few years.
And that's based on, the city gives us a list of what computers need to be replaced based on time and the need where they're not supported anymore, that kind of thing.
56 is you no longer can use Windows XP, and you got to spend money, and it's the
That's the MDTs for the
second of
vehicles.
3 years of it, so be it. Anyone have any trouble with that?
No, you have to do that.
Computers in the
We
vehicles.
move you to page 57 real quickly.
That's the system for this year, $4,000 to upgrade our. I was actually back in the jail the other day because we were having some air conditioner units, and I went back in time. The monitor was that big box type TV back there, and wires were coming from everywhere. Not a hazard, if you will, but it's well overdue. It's a little screen like this big, and there's 4 areas that you can review, and one of them was out. And then the dispatch has the same thing. So we're just trying to upgrade that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Page 58.
And then the critical response team with the rifles. This is a 2-year proposal to replace 10 of them. We have a 10-person unit. Actually, we're just getting ready to add 2 people. And they haven't been replaced since 1999.
Okay, Chief, on this one, you're going to need to sell me.
Rifles
Okay,
don't
so
wear
we're
out.
the
I
city
have
of
a bunch
Vero
them.
Beach. Why do I need, a rifle response team and a SWAT team?
You should see the rifles.
We've got, 9,
They need it.
We had our SWAT team respond when the U.S. Marshals came and arrested people behind that Taco Bell on Road 60.
Once again, but is this
I'm
ever
just saying,
we have,
I'm just saying they were armed and they blocked all the roads off, so we did have them
I
respond.
thought the tacos were good there.
So
Oh.
Well, it can be technical as well. After a certain amount of rounds are shot through a barrel of any firearm, there's recommendations that's on the technical end, but on the operations end, which most would probably understand more so, I can give you a couple examples for one, and the other thing is this within a year we actually bought 10 M16s from the military surplus at about $70 a piece, $100 a piece, because we need to have our officers armed sufficiently to combat the criminals. 2 weeks ago, at one of our local bars, we uncovered an AK-47. We had, within the last couple of years, we had literally a shootout at our big 7-Eleven at 23rd Street and US 1. And that was a group that was down at the Why Not bar that fortunately isn't open anymore, stopping at 7-Eleven at 1 or 2 in the morning before they close. And gang members fighting, goes outside, and it's like gunfight at OK Corral. Highland over here off 16th Street, the same thing within a few weeks of that. So if we don't have the firepower that the bad guys do, we're in an uphill battle.
Well, I
and it's
think the
not
thing
safe.
here is you're talking about precision barrels. So, if you aim to, I hate to say this, but aim to wound somebody, you want to be sure you wound them and not do worse damage. So, I think we should take his judgment on this personally.
yeah, it's not a turkey shoot.
Well,
Yeah, it's not-
right, and again, some of the used, if you will go down to manning our officers because, again, every officer needs to have a rifle, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And they have to qualify. But to your question with the CRT, they are a select group. They do train 8 hours a month, and they do respond from time to time. We hope they never have to respond, but they're trained to do so. And like Councilmember Graves mentioned, we did have that incident out there within the last couple of years by Rosewood Magnet during school involving escapees or people that were wanted from Sumter County.
You know, one of the things about Vero Beach is we have the good, the bad, and the ugly, the rich and the poor here, and I liken it more to, towns I lived in Ohio or someplace. And the reality is we have all kinds of elements, and that's not typical of beach towns. It really, truly is not. It's not typical of Stewart nearly as much, or Sebastian nearly as much. And witness some of the things that have happened in this town. This is a full environment, so I think you got to be prepared to deal with the good, the bad, and in this case, the ugly.
Well, and again, since 1999, and one of my jobs is to make sure our employees have the right equipment and that they feel safe. And, if you're working with a 15, 16-year-old firearm that could potentially have problems, and you could say, hey, Chief, we need a firearm that's newer, that's we're going to be able to utilize in the years to come. That's important to me, that they're safe with their equipment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Fine.
So we go on to the capital book?
Well, we have the $4,000, but that doesn't.
That's for the forensic light.
Yeah, which
that
I
needs to
think
be
we need.
updated in our crime scene. It's very, very important.
So what page are we on in the capital book? Which?
Start with page 3. Down there toward the bottom would be the section headed police. Gives you a kind of a 5-year recap of the various projects. And then once you've looked there for the full description of the projects, you can start on page 9. Once again, it's worth clarifying this, I think, for as we go through this in several departments. The way that we're required to book these capital lease purchases is that the line that you see labeled lease purchase acquisition is the purchase cost of the vehicles, which is offset dollar for dollar by a revenue line item up there called capital lease proceeds. So in other words, by the way we book it, we have to show the money we borrowed against the purchase of the vehicles, but the real net cost is the line labeled debt service, which is our annual payments.
So it's the 209?
That's the net cost of it. We offset purchasing with proceeds. And then we have the firearms range facility improvements, which are substantially lower in this version of the budget than the draft that you saw, and Chief can speak to that. We have an ATV for 16-17, and then some upgrades to the communications center for 17-18, but those are actually offset dollar for dollar by money from the county 911 surcharge, which the Chief hopes that he can get to pay for those upgrades. Okay. The descriptions start on page 9 with a little more detail. So when you see page, well, however you would like to start. If you start with page 9, this is the following pages show you the 5-year schedule of replacement of the vehicles that are proposed to be purchased with lease purchase money.
Is there some way of slowing this down? It hits me that we're jumping at this wholeheartedly, and I wonder if we could come back a little bit, stretch it out a little bit, or make it a little bit smaller than this. And
on the lease purchase acquisition, or this discussion? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I first took you to mean like, whoa, let's rock that. So again, I'll just give it to you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And the problem, Councilmember Old, is that we have slowed it down, and that's why we're where we're at.
Yeah.
For 10, 11, 11, 12, and 12, 13, we didn't purchase any vehicles.
Yes.
So we slowed it down, unfortunately, then. And that's why it's very difficult to be in a slow mode, if you will. For instance, some of the cars that haven't been replaced, if you look over in our parking lot now to the west parking lot, it's some of the new black and whites that are this current budget that we already talked about. We're getting ready to go on the street, so you'll see a lot of those black and whites soon. But vehicles that still need to be replaced moving forward, for instance, a 1990 vehicle with 135,000 miles on it, 16 years old. A 2005 with 93,000 miles, a 2001 with about 114,000 miles. So I have 10 cars just listed here that are all from 8 to 16 years old with 90 to 135,000 miles.
If you look starting on page 10, which actually shows the schedule year by year, the middle column shows you the model year and the make of the vehicle that we're proposing to replace, so you can get a feel for what it's
Right, and it just doesn't show you the mileage, so. Yes, sir.
In terms of capital, and I'm just wondering if there's some way to make it a little bit longer and slower than it's been proposed, and that's kind of where I was.
And that's why we're trying to stretch it over, not only to get it back to a cycle, if you will, where we won't fall back into the 10, 11, 12, 13, but to have a cycle moving forward and stretching it out 5 years into 1920.
So, Cindy, what does it look like? I mean, once we get past this period of catching up, what does it look like annually in sort of lease payments? Or can you?
I can. Essentially what we're talking about doing, both here and in the line for general fund and recreation light vehicles, is getting back on a rolling 5-year replacement. So essentially, the debt service reaches a like that 5-year mark, and then perpetually will stay at that level, because as debt service drops off from the one from 5 years back, you have that group of vehicles you bought 5 years back that you replace again. And so, essentially what you're looking at for the police, for instance, is you come up to that level in that 5th year of about $390,000, and theoretically, if you continue to replace every year, that would be your ongoing level of, debt service of about $463,000. That would be, depending on interest rates and vehicle prices, that'd be about your perpetual number if you rolled them out every 5 years. Same down here with general fund. You're looking at reaching that 3 to 350 mark and having that be perpetual debt service if you roll at every 5 years.
If we did it 6 years, or if we did it, am I asking something stupid? I mean, if we did it some other term, would it be better for us? Do the vehicles in 5 years, they're just not usable anymore, or is it? What are we talking about here?
If you stretch it out, it'll go down because your annual peak number will be smaller because you have a longer replacement cycle.
Right.
In terms of what makes sense, I mean, our history has been to wait 15 years and then pay cash for them, or you wait until they break down and replace them. So I think the chief could speak better to the police vehicles. Certainly Monty and Don can speak better to the stormwater and streets vehicles. But I think we're just looking to reach some level where two things happen. One, they get replaced before they begin costing a lot of money in maintenance. And two, they get replaced when they still have some resale value. Because what you don't see here, because it only goes out 5 years, is theoretically in that 6th year or so, when we auction these, we should start getting some money back to offset the cost of the debt service. Right now, when you sell a vehicle that's 15 or 20 years old with 150,000 police department miles on it, nobody pays you money for it.
Destination destruction.
And some of these we'd be embarrassed to try to sell. So I think what we haven't programmed in yet, hopefully, is an offset of auction proceeds. But I know he has more to say about that, and certainly Monty and Don can talk when they talk about the general light vehicles, what the pros and cons are of extending that amortization period.
What we're doing is we're jumping into a brand. I mean, in terms of, I'm new to the council, obviously, but what we're doing is jumping into a brand new thing. And I just want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And I'm not saying we're not, but is 5 years better than 6 or 7 or something like that? That's all.
We believe we can get 7 years out of our vehicles. The 5 years, just the request for the 5-year plan going through 1920. Again, with a leased vehicle, we can get more than 5 years out of it, and that's why we went to leasing, to get those years. Because years and years ago, you and I would share a car, and it literally would be running 24 hours a day, and you'd get the mileage real quick. You'd go out of your warranty real quick within a few years. So the lease, it's one person with a vehicle, and the mileage and the warranty it stays around for a while. And we feel we can do 7 years, not 5, 7. This is just
So does that mean the lease term should be 7 years?
We can certainly do that. I mean, you're going to pay more. You're going to pay more interest. You can either do that, or you can have 2 years programmed into your rolling schedule where you don't have any debt service at all on that particular group of vehicles.
Where I am is we have we have X amount of dollars to spend here, and we've got some things that we've got to throw into this, and I'm looking for money that we can get out, and or we can reduce some of these, and I just wonder if that's one.
And that is one of the ways we can do it, is shift some of these vehicles out, and instead of having the 5 years, as the chief says, we just shift the cars out to the 7-year plan.
It may not, it won't impact us in the near term if these are the quantity of vehicles we're replacing. What it'll impact is next year's 5-year budget and the 5-year after that. It'll lower costs a little bit if you want to make the debt service 7 years, or we make the debt service 5 years to keep the interest costs down. And for 2 years for each group of vehicles, there's no debt service at all. So it would lower our ultimate number.
Randy Holt said he's not picking you up, so.
The same number of vehicles.
Okay. We do 7-year debt service. So what I'm saying, we can either do that. That'll increase the amount of interest that we're paying, obviously. It's like getting a 5-year. These are just car loans, essentially.
Yeah.
Or we could get a 5-year car loan and then have 2 years in each rolling group where there was no debt service. That would lower your ultimate amount. Either way. Either way.
They help us later out, but in the immediate, for next year, it's not going to do.
Yeah, the cars are old.
Well, keep in mind, when we set the millage, that's a maximum millage. We can't have, if it's worth looking at, we can have a couple of weeks of project time to actually look at these things more in depth. I think what you're talking about is the life cycle of leased cars, as to how long we get out of the car, how long we're going to pay for it, type of thing. And I think the way we got it now, we pay for 5 years, and then we expect another couple of years after lease to use the vehicles.
The way we have it right now in the general lease vehicles is 5 years and replace at 5 years. So again, if we want to look at holding on to them for longer, it would save us money in one of two ways, either by extending the debt service to meet the length of time we're going to keep them, or by keeping the debt service at 5 years and knowing that we'll hold the vehicles for a couple of years beyond them being paid off. We can do it either way. One makes you more interest costs. The other still lowers your
But
costs.
no immediate relief.
But are they paid off at the end of the 5-year period?
Yes. These are 5-year car loans.
Okay.
So what I'm saying in real simple terms is we can either make them 7-year car loans and keep them for 7 years, or we can make them 5-year car loans and keep them for 7 years. It's like owning your car for a couple of years after you stop making payments on it. Either way will lower our costs, but the making the 5-year loans will lower the interest costs associated with the vehicle. Either way.
But basically, it's going to be another, 4 or 5 years before we're into a mature cycle with this.
We started last year.
Right.
So it's going to be 4 more years before we'll reach the end of the 5-year loans on the group that we borrowed last year.
But I think, as the Vice Mayor said, that, what we do tomorrow, you're going to be setting a max that you always can come off of, and you will have time before you get to the public hearings as to ideas that you have in the budget. Something I would like to encourage you to do, if you come up with some ideas, please pass them by either Cindy or I, and let's try to get it out. And if we need to have another workshop or something prior to going to the public hearing, because the public hearing should be something that we're all on the same page. May not all vote for it, but we're all at least on the same page and understand how it got to that point.
But I think it's a great discussion to have about these vehicles right now, because what we started last year was predicated on that 5-year replacement assumption. And if we don't want to, and that's why it's good to bring it up, we don't want to just do this for 5 years and then, lo and behold, you didn't realize you had a minimum amount every year of $350,000. So give us some direction as to what you'd like us to see.
I think you could find it really beneficial to have 2 years of no debt service, that you could then use that money towards other replacement costs, computers, outfitting the cars. I think it gives you a nice little cushion every few years to plan with.
Is there value at a future city council meeting before we set everything, you bringing something back to us? I don't know. It's just a question.
Or is it just
we could rework
policy?
it on the
It's not going to change this year, but
we could rework it on the 5-year debt service, 7-year hold, because the other thing about it is, and I agree, if we do 5-year debt service with the idea of holding them for 7 years, if something bad happens to them in year 6, we can get rid of them and we don't still have a loan on them. So to me that makes a lot of sense, just thinking in terms of what you do with your own car. We have that 2-year cushion of maybe it continues to be a useful vehicle and maybe it doesn't, but God forbid we would have to sell it while we're still paying for it.
Well, I think if there's a consensus of the council, you hear the chief saying that he thinks he can stretch for 7, and we can rework the numbers based on that premise, and then have the 2 years do still the 5-year financing and have the 2 years window.
it's not going to change. We need cars next year.
That is
No,
correct.
that's not.
It's not going to change neither of the cars. It's going to change the ultimate numbers annually.
And isn't there something kind of in the industry that says the best way to do it is 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or
Again, Monty and Don can speak to this when we address the general light vehicles. They did an extensive amount of work trying to find that spot where the maintenance costs stay the lowest, the technology saves us money in terms of gas mileage, and we get the most resale value. So
I think that's what I'm asking. Is this are we in the sweet spot? I think that's what I'm really
And I think what the chief is telling you is, in his opinion, it's different on the police cars than it is for the general fund light vehicles. So he's saying 7. And so with your direction, we'll work on 7 replacement 5-year loans. And when we get to the general fund, the public works part of this, Monty and Don will be up here, and they can tell you what their research shows on the others. They're used differently, the two groups.
Okay. I think we've decided that. What are we on, to page 15?
Firing range,
Firing range.
page 15.
I question that we do a firing range. I think the total cost was something that we talked about last time was about $1 million something or other, and I'm thinking that
Been reduced to about 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a great job pulling it down.
I would think we could go somewhere else and get training at our neighboring area or something for a fraction of the value. And I think this is something we shouldn't be doing, and I need to be convinced.
Yes, sir. As Cindy mentioned, and when we met briefly a few weeks ago, I know all of you, to include Councilmember Turner, asked me to come back with something different than the million plus proposal. And again, at that time, we were a little short for time getting things together, so we did just that and literally cut it in half to over 2 years at 530. And what the project would do, and I can go into explaining again some of the history of our range, but remove existing target system, which does not work right now. Our target system is in need of repair or replacement. Concrete and small berm, remove lead contaminants from the large berm. I mentioned the berm there that would cost approximately $38,000 to mine the lead out of that berm, and then it would have to be rebuilt, the berm itself, and then replace with concrete slab and underground electric wiring, rebuild the berm once again, and erect a roof structure over the slab, install the bullet capture and target systems like we spoke about before, the lane markers, what have you. Now, if I can just share with you, because sometimes it's hard to picture it, so that's why I brought pictures. The first page is kind of an understanding of what I just talked about, the overhead structure, the concrete slab, and you'll see some pictures moving forward of the capture system and target system. The drop down here is that baffling system that we talked about. That's removed from our proposal. So just bear that in mind. That little drops situation there, that's the baffling system right here. This piece here, it goes down the line. All right, so take that out. That's just in this picture. That's the baffling system that honestly is the other $500,000, that whole baffling system.
Guys are a little better shot than that, right?
We hope. And then this page 2 there, as you look down again, what you're looking at to the ceiling is again the baffling system, but there would be a structure. But remove the baffling system, and then you have the bullet capture, and I mentioned it before, it was kind of like a V shape. And then the third picture is a side view of the capture system to give you a little bit of better understanding. The targets come down right in front of the capture system, and the rounds will hit and go into the capture system, which you see on page 4, and then go into the little buckets there. And those can be, instead of going into a berm, they can be recycled, and we can receive something back from that. So that's just the rear of that capture system. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an understanding of what it would look like, or what it does look like in our proposal, as opposed to just trying to explain it, which isn't always easy. Remember, we'll keep won't have the baffling system there. Again, the target system is in need of repair. So at the very least, we have to repair our target system because, and when I say target system, the targets itself can turn and move. That's needs repair or replacement. It actually needs replacement. We've tried to repair it. The company that put it in and has tried to repair it, I don't believe exists anymore or can't support it. And we've gotten to, over the years, again, for your understanding and the public's understanding, where we have only been able to shoot at our firing range from 3:30 to 3:45, no earlier each day because of the county facility that is just north of there. So again, imagine when it's daylight savings time and it's dark at 5 o'clock, we don't have much time to train. And talking about, again, our qualifications, our quarterly structured shooting events, our CRT training, our qualifications for new hires, things like that, our discretionary shooting training. And again, discretionary shooting is kind of, a target comes up, shoot or don't shoot, things like that. Kind of we try to bring it to life as much as we can. So we've been unable to do that except, again, from 3:30 to 3:45 or later because of the county facility. So we're trying to make our range where we can shoot essentially when we need to shoot or when we want to shoot based on training, to make it safe for everyone surrounding, to also make it where we can bring agencies in like we used to either assist them with their firing or allow them to use the range with a instructor, what have you. We always had the federal government agencies that are here out of Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie come up. The Sheriff's Department to this day still uses our range for different things. I know Sebastian would use our range. Sebastian goes to Palm Bay right now to use to fire, things like that. So it's we have a firing range. It's in need of a lot of repair, and if we want to do that, it does cost, and it's one of those things. I want to point it back to the cars, but we've been slow there as well, and not doing anything in many years because of the time we've been
generate income.
Not necessarily. We could potentially have agencies pay, but a lot of times we reciprocate anyway. So I'm not going to utilize somebody's services and then say, hey, pay to shoot, but it's potentially. But we also have events for the public that are free, the firearm safety courses, things like that. We have a classroom there with bathrooms. We have an obstacle course for our SWAT team and other agencies to use. So the K-9 field's there. As you go by there on 41st Street, you see our K-9 field that's on the 41st Street side. So we have a lot of opportunities for training there, period. But as far as income, not necessarily. I can tell you that it's something I can do and haven't yet. I can reach out to our community too. We do have a foundation, and we have people that work for us in our foundation and their community members that are very thankful and I think would help us in our endeavor if we choose to go that way as well. So we do need to do something.
What is the difference between 15, 16, 140,500? What is that by compared to 16, 17, 389, 800? What is going on? Curious.
The first year is 140, and the second year is 380.
Right.
What are we doing there?
Why? What happens for 140 and what happens?
One is setting up the initial foundation.
Right. You said 15, 16. You meant fiscal year, sir. I'm sorry. We want to initially do what's first. We have to mine the berm. We have to lay the concrete and the underground wiring, and essentially the structure, and then the cost. The second year, that 389 will be that capture system. That's the costly end of it.
Well,
so it's in a phase. It's kind of building it in a phase over 2 years.
If you look at our 5-year capital program and our 5-year budget, 15 and 16 and 16 and 17 are particularly bad years. 17, 18, and 19 and 20 get somewhat better.
Because they're further away.
No, not because they're.
And we won't be here.
Yeah, well, the second one's true because we won't be.
Digging out of the hole we did.
No, but if you
Try to
look
picture those years, right?
Yeah.
if you look at Randy's 5-year projection and so on, what happens is we're in better shape as time goes on as we start digging out of the hole. It would be a lot easier to pay the 389, 817, 18 than it would in
Stretch it out. But I guess I'm concerned about environmental.
Yeah, the lead.
I would say at a bare minimum that we look at funding at least the lead removal.
I have a question. What's the range of life of a shooting range?
I don't want to talk about lead.
The range of
How long? Like, we construct this facility, how long would it last?
It's about maintaining it.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in Hernando that's very similar, and my understanding it's like a lot of other things. It'll last as long as you maintain it and utilize it and keep it up. I think indefinite. I mean, I don't know that it's a lifetime where it would have to be replaced. You may have to maintain in some of the mechanisms and the motor, things like that. But I don't think, for instance, the system, the capture system would have to ever be replaced, or very, way down the road if so.
Would the proximity to the county facility and other things in that area continue to limit the availability of our use of this range in the future?
I think if we can get it as proposed at some time, I think we'll be right where we want to be. To utilize it anytime, to bring in other agencies anytime. To work. Right now, we're going to continue to do what we do as far as the time frame goes. We have been out there some because, in all honesty, a couple of incidents that happened years back. The one was just an error that hasn't happened and won't happen again. But understandably, it does bring some apprehension to people. So we've been battling that, if you will, over the years. But we've been slowly working with the county, and we've actually been out there a couple of times during the day. We call them and say, "Hey, we're coming out. We got a new officer. We just need to qualify him, or the CRT team's going to be doing this. That's what have you." And they're like, "No problem." But we want to be good partners in the community, obviously, and work together, and that's what we plan on to do. And Mayor, if we just would like to have something done as far as the system and moving it forward. If we know it's going to get done at some time, I think that's a victory, if you will, and a plus. So I understand what you're referring to as these 2 years, and we could potentially stretch it out some. But my goal is to get it done. And it's it's our facility, and we want to be proud of it as well.
I don't really understand why we have a firing range. I'm earlier than that. We're small. We're a small city. This is expensive. Can't we be using another training facility? Can't we be going to Indian River State College? Can't we be doing something else that would cost a lot less than this kind of thing? For us, and wouldn't that facility be more sophisticated and be able to do more for us in terms of training than us building our own thing? Are there other ways, or am I just missing it?
Two-part question answer to that, sir. As far as sophistication, what Indian River State College has is essentially this inside. They're inside a building. They have I think it's a $5 million project. I mean, they have the air handlers because it's inside. And it's quite it's a nice facility. Yes, that can be used to qualify. That's it, and it's at their beck, and you have to call down and try to find a date if it's not being used by the college. There's academy classes that are there 3 or 4 a year that may be using it, or other agencies, what have you. So you're at their call, if you will. Not that that's a major problem. To do all those other things in training, no. I mean, they're not going to allow us to come down there and do discretionary shooting where we can turn the targets and move. And our CRT, they're not going to allow that. That's strictly qualifying. So that can be done. Of course, then you're going to Fort Pierce as well. There's some travel there and some per diem potentially. I can tell you that the North County range, I believe the Sheriff's Department uses their range. It's about $10,000 a year. They have a certain amount of dates that they can use. It's not any time. It's not all year long, but they do pay for that. And again, it's based on the dates and the availability. And then I spoke to Chief Morris with Sebastian, and they go to Palm Bay. Palm Bay has a system, a very nice facility, and they go there and they pay. And in her own words, she'd rather pay us. Just as a side note. So,
but if we had to pay $20,000 a year or $15,000 a year or something like that for training to go somewhere, that's a lot less than this, and that's an awful lot of years of. This represents an awful lot of years of training.
I understand,
and that's
I just equate it to renting, though.
Yeah.
You know, we may rent for $20,000 a year for how many years, and then when we've spent $500, you know, and it may take a while. I understand that,
Yeah.
but what do we have when we meet that goal or that number? We don't have anything. We're going to continue to rent. I'd rather own.
Right. Well, and this has to be replaced. I just wonder if this is a good use of money for us, and that's my question.
Understood.
Mr. Kramer, Ms. Graves, do you have an opinion on this?
I'd like to see this possibly be a community effort. I mean, you know, you're looking at Sebastian, Shores, Fellsmere, the county, your other federal agencies. You know, I don't see a reason why you can't share the expenses. I mean, I don't like the term of going to the other agencies and calling it income, but I think if it's a inclusive share the expenses type of thing, I think you could probably build something like this.
But if you share the expenses, you're going to share the ownership. And then who pays the maintenance? If they put these funds in, is it because it's our property, it's our maintenance fees, or does everyone get their fraction of the maintenance? I think.
Well, that's fine. I mean, they can share the maintenance of it. You know, I mean, you can continue. You know, you understand we do get the benefit because we don't have to drive all over the place for training. I mean, it's right there.
The question of scheduling conflicts, if everyone has a piece of the ownership, and who gets to be in charge of who uses it.
You'd have to work something out.
Yeah. Again, we have an existing tower that is erected there, and that you know the instructors are with the system working. You can call out and go over intercom. We also have an existing training room, and with bathrooms. So we have it's just not a field. You know, the PBA house, of course, is there. That's a little side, and then the canine field and the CRT obstacle field. So there's more out there that we utilize and that other agencies utilize. And again, I think that through our foundation, that may be a possibility as well.
Ms. Turner, what do you think?
I was going to say it's a city asset that we own. It's like any other, whether it's Leisure Square, other things, it's an asset of the city, you know, and whether we're going to continue to maintain it and utilize it. Obviously, in this budget year, I think we have had an awful lot of pressure on our taxpayers. I'd like to see it moved out, but I'd like to see us make some progress out there. And whether it's just doing, you know, the lead removal or whatever at this time, at least take some step to try to save this facility.
Jim, what do you think?
I think pushing it out is something that we can do. I think, as the chief said, he just wants to be able to pursue doing this work. I think taking Jay's comments and seeing if there's a way we could put together a consortium of people to help pay for it. It's about $38,000 to do the lead mining, as I understand. And so we could program that in there, because I agree. I think that's something that needs to be done right away. And but if you want us to, we can go and look at other options and alternatives and then project this out a couple of years and try to relieve that pressure, but at the same time, look for funding options.
What about other cities our size? Do they have something like this, or is this
I think
exceptional?
I think you've already heard that, for example, in Sebastian, that they go to Palm Bay. Yeah, and so a lot of places utilize other facilities. I think what the chief is saying is that ours is more than just the firing range. We have the canine training, we have the obstacle course. We do an awful lot with the property that's over and above what the firing range is there. But if you wish, let us put the $38,000 for the mining process, and then we will project out from there and look at options and alternatives for funding.
Yeah, the reality is we don't have. That sounds reasonable to me. I don't hear a consensus. I'm maybe a little closer to Randy, but we don't really have to decide this, Amelia, to September. So let's.
But to Mr. Old's point about other cities, I think what is nice is we do have this, but we've ignored it, and it's giving an opportunity for all of our agencies that do work together. I mean, how many times have I seen our police and the sheriff's department in the same situation? You have an opportunity where we have a community asset that all of the law enforcement officers can use in the county. And so it kind of, I think it gives an opportunity to have training, camaraderie, and really skilled officers, and not having to send everybody out to other places to go shoot.
Right, and we can host training as well. Any training topic that you can think of, agencies have the opportunity to host from time to time. So any training topic with regard to firearms, CRT, different types of training, uses of shields, and all different types of tactical training can be done at our range, and we used to do that.
Well, and frankly, if I would rather have our officers training our public to have a concealed weapons license than some of these vendors that come through. If someone's going to learn how to use their gun, I think our officers might be the best people to do it.
Jim, make your proposal again, and let's see if we can get consensus on that, because we're all over the lot, I think.
Okay, the proposal to amend this based on the conversations taking place, one is that we would like to have the $38,000 put into the budget in order to do the lead mining that we would have to do there. The other is we would look for funding sources, and we kick this thing out maybe another year or two, depending on what the chief can come up with on a plan, and try to bring together the foundation, but other agencies that might be able to use it. I agree. I think we could work out an interlocal agreement as to the use of the facility, especially if we could get somebody like Sebastian to sign on. And let's see what we can do about putting that together, and that'll relieve the pressure for at least this year, possibly next year.
Right. We have some existing local agreements as well. It's just it's not used as much because of our limitations.
Can we live with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I think
sir.
we're fine with a 38. Yeah. My assumption is that they're going to come back later on if.
Well, and bear in mind the 38 as well. I could get a price, but if we're going to mine the field and it was $38,000, that was the quote, we may have to build it up a little bit more dirt-wise. So just keep that in mind.
But I mean, yeah.
Yes.
What we need to do in environmental.
We'll get out there and pull it out. So.
United Day of Caring.
The reality of this one is. We have some money problems, and I don't feel wise enough to know what we really should do about this. I really don't.
Yeah, I'd like some help understanding this. Not right this second, but I'd like to come
Yes, sir.
out and learn more about it because
Going out to the range. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't been out there, go out there and
Yeah.
take a look around.
Yeah, I gladly would take anyone out.
Yeah, I'd
and,
like to go out. I'm curious.
Field
now.
day.
Can we shoot the
I
rifles?
promise you'll come back.
Shoot the old rifles.
You only get the old ones.
Can I take my 7.7 millimeter Japanese relic? No, probably not. Okay, that moves us to page 16, the all-terrain vehicle. I have a question on this, and this is the wrong question. If we need one, why don't we need one in 15-16 instead of 16-17? I don't know.
That's a good question, sir, and we're just trying to spread things out a little bit in our budget efforts, if you will, but we certainly do need one. We do not have one.
In light of what our last page, I think we should move this up a year.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. And let me add, too, though, that and we understand we're one department. I know we're a larger department when it comes to budget, but we understand that. And
Just as a comment here for a police chief to say that, it's an unbelievable experience.
After your how many years as a city manager and you're going, yeah.
can I continue?
Now the asides
We
over.
truly do, and we understand we've asked for some things, if you will, and we are willing, as we always have been, to continue to work with all of you and Mr. O'Connor and the other city departments to make things work. And we understand sometimes they have to be moved. My main thing is that as long as we're going to get there one day in the near future, then I think that's the light that's at the end of the tunnel. So I do appreciate that as well.
Could I ask a stupid question? I got a telephone call from someone saying, please support your local police department. And I got the envelope that said it would return address was Wisconsin. Was that something that came from here, or was
No.
it something that came from some other police department?
And I guess this is a good time, since we're public as well, but we always tell everyone, and people do call us, and we put it out on our Facebook. The PBA only does mail-outs. Once a year they do a mail-out. You'll get it in the mail. You'll never hear anyone, you should not hear anyone say, this is the Vero Beach Police Department. It's just a mail-out for us. We do not call anybody. Some of your groups out there will hire marketers to call, and because they know they're calling the Vero Beach area, and that a lot of people just want to, for instance, support Vero Beach or Indian River County, they'll mention that in their tactics, if you will, but certainly no.
All right, that brings...
Back to the ATV, please.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
First, I guess, how many miles of beach area then are we going to cover with this ATV?
Our city limits probably, I'm just guessing, ma'am, maybe 3 to 4 miles, something like that, our city limits.
And do we have any place to store this vehicle?
We can store it in our garage with a trailer, and then we also have in the past stored it. There's a small garage shed at South Beach that we used to utilize too. But my thing is for longevity and keeping it in good shape, and to me it may be beneficial more to run it back and forth, keeping it in our lot than
the corrosive
than over in
environment.
the heat and the salt and what have you. The last one we had, we kept over there by South Beach there, because that's where we would probably go in at South Beach or even up towards JC, what have you.
And its life was?
The life of the
ATV being stored out on the beach.
Yeah, it lasted a while, but once it was being stored at the beach, that's the declining years. Yeah, that was the declining years there. And, we had that.
Look at me, I'm stored at the beach.
You're looking great, sir. We had that drowning the other week, unfortunately, and we were utilizing, I don't know if it's the recreation or who it was the mule style Kawasaki, what have you, and we didn't even have that to utilize to go up and down the beach. And again, I'm there quite a bit, and I know we need to be there from time to time for various reasons, dogs, alcohol, just that people see us in case they need us. And that, to me, sitting there, and I do quite a bit, again, it's just that I'm thinking, gosh, if they would just see that four-wheeler come down with the officer, that gives people peace of mind, community, what have you. The last 2 weekends, I saw a girl coming down the beach on a red four-wheeler, and it had the county emblem.
Oh,
yeah, maybe it's the turtles.
She's
Yeah,
the new turtle.
Yeah, so that's the only, but it would be so nice to be there with the.
And she'll definitely want to train whoever is going to be riding that about.
I sat right by one of the nests, so it was good to go for about 2 hours.
All right, are you happy with that? Is it okay? Page 17. Does anyone have any comment?
Yes.
Yes, we're moving that up. Does page 17, anyone have any comment? Well, I guess we're through the police department, are we?
No, just one question on 17. Yeah, at least the way this is written, it appears that this is being replaced strictly for the comfort. And I was going to say, I don't believe that's the case, but
it's not. It's not specifically. Again, from the 90s, early on, and there's the way it's set up. I mean, comfort's important. I can tell you that because I've never been there, but sitting in a seat for 8 hours a day, that's why we get them really nice chairs, to be honest with you, because for their lumbar and their back and comfort, that does help. And where how you sit at a console is helpful too. There are some consoles that you actually could stand up and work. It rises when you to kind of stretch and while you're at work. So comfort is important. I'm not going to say it isn't, but this is to to get more monitors and two upgrades,
an
kind of like our
system.
upgrade
Yeah,
with our
it's an
with our
system.
current computer system with the RMS and the computer-aided dispatch. We want to upgrade with that.
And more importantly, the way it's programmed, you believe, I think, that you can get 9/11 fees to offset the cost of this. You're going to try anyway.
I have been trying, and that doesn't look very positive right now. So,
The way we got it programmed, so
Yes.
if that changes, it changes.
yes,
Until 17, 18, so keep trying.
we're going to keep trying.
All right, thank you, Chief. Unless anyone from the public have any comment about police, or anyone from council?
Thank you, Chief Curry.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've been in session exactly an hour and a half. Do you want to take a 10-minute break, or do you want to push on? I'd kind of like to take a 10-minute break.
Well, then let's do that.
All right, 10:40.